They promised victory, but they were wrong. Every silence is strategy, every move intentional. They never warned you about the cost. Every name you delete buys back your time. Discipline looks cold to the crowd. Every second counts in the war for ownership. Discipline looks cold to the crowd. The higher you climb, the fewer friends remain. The higher you climb, the fewer remain. One man sits apart, facing his silent destiny. The higher you climb, the fewer remain at the table. Moving people isn't cruelty, it's strategy. Every legend walked alone first. History proves it. Strategy isn't just a plan, it's the silence before the storm. Every silence is a strategy for shadowing. One man sits apart facing his silent destiny. You start editing your life. This is where most people hesitate. Greatness keeps going when others hesitate. Absorbing every detail in the dark, greatness keeps going when others hesitate. Lonely rooms build powerful minds. Comfort never did. Every input is an investment in your future self. Comfort never did build powerful men. Some endings are necessary to create momentum. Success demands trade-offs that few are willing to pay. Every single silence is a calculated strategy. What you remove defines you. Every decline is a step forward, mapping something vast beyond human comprehension today. Higher standards shrink your circle. That's not loss, that's precision. Group chat notifications mounting, but ignored completely now. The crowd follows comfort. Leaders move against it. Leaders move against the flow of the comfortable crowd. A mind in constant motion. Some endings are necessary for true human progress. Closure creates the momentum needed for the final leap. Success looks loud outside, but quiet within. Inside, it is quiet focus. Inside, it's quiet focus. Every legend walked alone first. The cost of elevation is often misunderstood. History proves it every single time. They work while the world sleeps on. They work while the world sleeps in the shadows. Choice becomes destiny eventually. Every morning you choose who you become. Standing before the mirror, he turns away finally. Every morning you become someone new. History proves it every single time it happens. Leadership hides the struggle within. Success requires a composure that hides the struggle. Not everyone is willing to pay the price of precision. Success requires a composure that hides the struggle. Not everyone is willing to pay the price of precision. Even the strongest must eventually face their own silence. Silence has a cost that we must all pay. One room where the loneliest man admits his truth. Every great leap starts at the very edge, alone. Every great leap starts at the edge, alone. Every great leap starts here, at the edge, alone. They told you success would feel like victory. They never told you what it would cost. Every throne is built on something left behind, and most people aren't ready to pay that price. The elite don't sleep like you do. They don't dream like you do. While the world rests, they are already moving. Alone, always alone. Every name you delete is a distraction you're eliminating. Every door you close is an hour you're reclaiming. They'll call it cold, they'll call it arrogance, you'll call it discipline, precision, and focus. No one films the moment you choose work over the dinner table. No one documents the phone call you didn't take. But the result, the world eventually sees. The process, that's yours alone. This is where most people flinch. This is where friendship gets confused with loyalty. The elite know the difference. And that difference is the gap between average and great. The higher you climb, the thinner the air. Not because there's less oxygen, because there are fewer people willing to breathe it. Elevation is isolation by design. Some people in your life are chess pieces placed on the wrong board. Moving them isn't cruelty, it's strategy. The summit has room for one, and most people prefer the valley anyway. You stop answering calls you don't need to take. You stop attending events that don't move you forward. The world calls it antisocial. The elite call it editing. Every person of historical consequence was misunderstood in their time. Every empire was built in rooms that felt empty. Greatness is a private construction project. The ribbon cutting is for everyone else. There is a moment in every man's rise when the crowd stops making sense. When the opinions of many become the noise of none, that is the moment you learn to walk your own road. And that road gets lonelier with every mile. Seasons change, people change, but the mission stays the same. The trophies multiply, the guest list shrinks. That's not failure, that's refinement. Every relationship has a cost-benefit analysis the successful apply unconsciously. Not because they're heartless, but because they have to be. Because they understand time is a finite currency, and they've chosen where to spend it. At 40,000 feet, you see clearly. The noise is gone, the requests stop. The only voice is the one you've been ignoring for years. The only voice you hear is your own. Every empire begins in a stripped-down frame. Before the walls go up, there is only the structure. Most people leave before the structure is complete. The builder stays through every winter. Lonely hotel rooms are the offices of the ambitious. Room service is the silence they've learned to prefer. The bed is a brief interruption, not a destination. Morning always comes too fast for men with missions. Solitude is not emptiness, it is pressure. The pressure that forms diamonds from carbon. The elite don't avoid being alone, they schedule it. They weaponize silence in a world addicted to noise. The books they read aren't for comfort. The paths they choose aren't for scenery. Every input is an investment, every silence a strategy. They don't consume, they calibrate. Their calendar is their autobiography. What they say yes to defines what they become. What they eliminate defines what they protect. Every X on a calendar is a line drawn against mediocrity. They've learned to read a room without joining it, to observe without absorbing the noise, to be present without being available. That is the first skill of the elite, invisible distance. Access becomes the first currency of the powerful. Not money, absolute access. Who gets your attention determines your trajectory. The elite protect access like a state secret. At a certain altitude, dinner parties become strategy sessions. Friends become advisors, or they become irrelevant. This isn't cruelty, this is clarity. A clarity that comes at a price most refuse to pay. They've learned who gets in and who doesn't. Their inner circle shrinks every year, not from failure, like from higher standards. The closer you get to great, the fewer people qualify. They move against the current because the current leads to average. The group chat is a democracy of distraction. Silence is not sadness, it is selection. And selection is true power. Some endings are necessary. They are not failures. The elite learn to finish chapters that no longer serve the story. Without apology, without theater, without delay. Vision is the private religion of the ambitious. It is practiced alone. It is protected fiercely. No one committee approves great dreams. They are born in silence and executed in isolation. The moment before the world sees you, you are still alone. And in that moment, you realize you always were. The crowd is for the performance. The man beneath it is solitary. That is the paradox of the elite, famous and unknown simultaneously. Success feels less triumphant than people imagine, because the mind is already at the next summit. The celebration is for others. The vision never stops demanding. Every great mind studied another great mind, and every biography confirmed the same truth. The ones who changed history were, without exception, deeply alone. Not abandoned, chosen, deliberately, defiantly alone. It does not announce itself in corridors. It simply arrives and the world rearranges. That rearrangement comes from years of solitary work. They work while the world sleeps. Not because they have to, because they choose to. That choice, repeated 10,000 times, is what separates them. Discipline is just loneliness in motion. They do not explain themselves, they do not justify their distance. Explanations are for the insecure. The elite simply act and let the results be the argument. The building stands, that's the explanation. There comes a day when the silence doesn't feel like loneliness anymore. It feels like absolute ownership, complete, total, irreversible. This is the arrival, and most people never reach it. The irony of the elite, they build community from isolation. They create connection from disconnection. They fill rooms they no longer enter. The vision became the world. The visionary remained alone. Every empire has its quiet moments. Moments when the builder wonders what was traded. And in those moments, they always arrive at the same answer. Everything, and it was worth it. Part 1 ends where the story always begins. With a man in a room he built, surrounded by people he selected, still somehow the loneliest person in it. They begin before the world can make demands. Before the emails, before the obligations. The body in motion while the world is still. This is how they steal their hours back. Access control is the architecture of success. The successful man is never accidentally accessible. Every interaction is chosen, not surrendered. That is the difference between a life led and a life reacted to. The elite are there, and they are also always elsewhere. Not abandonment, presence at a frequency they can't always reach. Two places at once, fully committed to neither. Two places at once, fully committed to neither. The body is the first empire they build. The first test of whether they can be disciplined when no one is watching. The gym at 4 a.m. is not about fitness. It's about proof, daily proof to themselves. While the world returns to its comfort, they advance. Not from obligation, from compulsion. The work does not feel like sacrifice to them. The stopping, that is what would feel like loss. Old friendships don't always survive ambition. Not because ambition is cruel, because the road diverges. Two people can care about each other and still face different directions. Distance is not always rejection. Sometimes it's simply trajectory. The ocean is the moat. The silence is the point. The ocean is the moat. The silence is the point. Here, no one can accidentally find you. Here, only intention reaches the shore. Negotiation is the art of managing distance. Too close and you lose leverage. Too far and you lose the deal. The elite never confuse warmth with weakness. They can smile and still control everything on the table. The attendees won, always won. The elite convene there every morning. The agenda, priorities, threats, targets, focus. The attendees, one, always one. They study the past to find permission for their solitude. History is full of the lonely great. Every Medici, every Edison, every Jobs, alone in the workshop, changed in the world. Sometimes the withdrawal is physical, analog, off-grid, unreachable. These retreats are not vacations, they are reloads. The machine goes offline to come back faster. The inner circle of the elite is small by design. 4 minds, 6 at most. Each chosen for what they bring, not who they are. Affection is not a qualification. The crowd moves around power like water around stone. The most powerful people in the room are rarely its loudest. The most powerful people in the room are rarely its loudest. They are its most still. They attend the room they belong in without entering it emotionally. Present, composed, strategic. Every conversation an investment, every handshake an analysis. They are there, but they are not with you, a frequency apart. Even their legal structures are built for distance. LLCs, trusts, shells within shells. Not for tax evasion, for insulation. They understand exposure is vulnerability. The elite environment mirrors the elite mind. Nothing extraneous, nothing accidental, every calorie counted. The space is engineered for output. Even the furniture is screened for distraction. The elite mentor from a distance that commands respect. They teach without becoming dependencies. They guide without becoming needed, always a step ahead. The greatest gift they give, self-sufficiency. The trophy is for yesterday. The man who earns it is already building tomorrow. The windshield is always bigger, always more important. Leadership is the loneliest feedback loop in existence. Everyone tells you something different. All of it is true. The leader must decide which truth to act on. Alone, always alone. Every great leap is preceded by standing at an edge, looking down, measuring the distance, and choosing to jump anyway. Looking down, measuring the distance, across the vast sunset world, alone, always alone at the edge. Between vision and reality lies the construction zone. Noisy, dangerous, impermanent looking, the builder sees the finished structure inside the frame. The builder sees the finished structure inside the frame. The greatest performance of the elite is their composure. Inside, a human experiencing everything humans experience. Composed. Outside, a structure that doesn't crack. The mask is perfect. Isolation doesn't erase conscience, it amplifies it. The larger the empire, the more human lives it touches. And most builders feel that weight when no one can see, quietly. In quiet corridors, in parking lots, in the 3-second pause before the signature. Isolation doesn't erase conscience, it amplifies it. They see what they chose not to have. And sometimes it registers. A fleeting inventory of the trade-offs. A fleeting inventory of the trade-offs. Then the elevator reaches the top, and they remember why. They see the whole while the parts see only their piece. That altitude of vision requires literal and figurative distance. You cannot read the map while inside the territory. Distance is view. The elite are always slightly outside, even of themselves. The speech ends, the crowd disperses. He returns backstage to a room with one chair. No debrief, no celebration. Just the next thing. There is always a next thing. In these moments, the accounting happens. Quietly, internally, without witnesses. What was built, what was spent, what was left behind. The perimeter walk is the CEO's confessional. The journal is the one place power goes to be human. No advisors, no performance, no management, just the self. Just the self documenting its own passage. The most honest thing the elite produce, never seen by the world. Even the most self-contained eventually find their confessional. The isolation accumulates into a heavy, silent weight. The cost becomes undeniable as the isolation grows. And in that room, briefly, they are not alone. There is a meeting tomorrow that changes everything. He has been building toward it for 6 years. In this room, alone at midnight, he reviews it one final time. No one will know how long this night lasted. He will not tell them. Every morning is a reinvention. The private self locked in the room. The public self deployed into the arena. One man living 2 lives simultaneously. This is the elite tax. He built the machine, but the machine doesn't know his name. He employs thousands he will never meet. His decisions shape lives lived completely apart from his. Power is the most abstract form of human connection. Every now and then, the machine stops. Not for long. It never stops for long. But in these moments of stillness, the question emerges. Is the distance I've built my prison or my palace? He kept the photo for a reason. Not to mourn, to measure. Every face in it represents a road not taken. And he is at peace with the road he chose. Part 2 ends in the in-between. In a terminal between past and future. In a man between who he was and who he's becoming. The flight is boarding now. He picks up his bag, alone, always alone. Every empire built on human isolation has a moment of fracture. Not collapse, fracture. The hairline crack that no one else sees. But he sees it, he always sees it first. Crisis reveals the architecture. The structure is laid bare for all to see. When the noise gets loudest, the leader gets quietest. Not from confidence, from isolation. The silence is absolute. He has no one to share the panic with, so he doesn't panic. People leave. Always people leave. Some doors close because you open too many windows. The elite feel it. They always feel it. But the feeling doesn't change the direction. A new cycle begins. The weight of decisions no one else can make is the tax on elevation. 10,000 lives in the balance of one night's thought, and no one to share the weight with at 2 a.m. This is the cost. This is why most would never choose it. Even the most disciplined eventually need velocity. Not control, speed, not strategy and sensation. The body's reminder that it is still alive beneath the suit. Velocity is a form of purgation. When the law becomes the battlefield, loneliness hardens into armor. Not cruelty, necessity. The man who showed vulnerability in court lost everything. The man who showed nothing won. They absorb bad news like infrastructure, distributed, managed, contained. Because if the structure shows damage, everything collapses faster. The structure must hold. It always must hold. The leader must remain standing when the ground is moving. Some of the loneliest moments are not spent alone. They are spent ending something with someone you once trusted completely. The handshake of a finished chapter, warm, final, devastating. A bridge burned in silence. Even empires end, especially empires end. The great ones understand this. The end of one is the excavation site of the next. They don't mourn the structure. They take the lessons and they move on. Failure in isolation is the purest teacher. No one to soften it, no one to split the blame. Just you and the concrete and the question, what did I miss? And what do I do next? Even the most controlled encounter the uncontrollable, health, mortality, the body's own rebellion. In these moments, all the success is backdrop. And the loneliness becomes something else entirely, something human. There are gatherings that make the cost unmistakable, not devastating, clarifying. Here is what the mission took, and here is who it left. The accounting happens, and then the feast continues. Isolation by design, isolation by result. The composure you see is not the absence of fear, it is fear managed. The tremor, invisible to the boardroom, is real. The elite have simply built walls between feeling and function. The architecture of the self, reinforced and alone. Every throne has a room that humbles it, a hospital room, a grave. A doctor's sentence, here the empire means nothing. Here, only the human remains. The title of king is stripped at the door. The final ceiling, flat and absolute. 3 a.m. is the private territory of the elite, the hour no one visits. In the dark, the thoughts they cannot afford in daylight come. And they sit with them, because there is no one else to call. The weight of the summit, finally settling for the night. Old connections survive in digital amber, a message from a life left behind. And for a moment, the distance feels like a choice he could unmake. He sends a professional response. The moment closes. The architecture holds. Connected only by the data that defines them. Still alone. The distance remains absolute. There is no greater loneliness than a crowd that wants a version of you. Not you. The version they've constructed. The man at the podium is a fiction. The rest is theater, a performance played out under the cold white glare. The spotlight reveals everything and nothing. The center of the frame, the edge of the world, The rooms multiply as the people thin. What was once built for many is now occupied by one. The mansion echoes with the choices that filled it, a monument to ambition. More space, fewer people, the mathematics of success. The light goes out, the architecture remains, alone. In the moment of maximum recognition, the loneliness peaks. Thousands see him, none of them know him. Applause is distance. They celebrate who they think he is, not who he is. They cheer for the crown. The center of the storm, perfectly motionless, perfectly alone. The people who built you outlive their mortality. They live in your decisions. Your posture, your refusals, you carry them forward whether or not they're present. The mentor is gone. The lesson is permanent. The lineage of isolation continues. Another stone in the architecture of legacy, just as heavy as the others. The child sees the result, but not the cost. And the father cannot explain. Between them, love, pride, and the ghost of all the dinners missed. When the mission is the point, the man is irrelevant. Legacy is silent. Utility over vanity, purpose over presence, power in the shadows. The rooms multiply as the people thin. What was once built for many is now occupied by one. Thousands see him, none of them know him, applause is distance. In the moment of maximum recognition, the loneliness peaks. The people who built you outlive their mortality. They live in your decisions. The body insists. The mind refuses. The gears never stop grinding. The summit allows no peace, only a different kind of pressure. The summit allows no peace, only a different kind of pressure. They don't celebrate others' failures. They dissect them. Analysis over emotion. Every competitor's collapse is a free masterclass, a warning written in red. The isolated see it clearly. The gregarious are too busy toasting. Vision wins. Survival of the most clinical, the architecture of continuation, discipline. At the summit, everything flows upward to one set of hands. The buck terminates. In those hands, in that skull, in that body alone, accountability is absolute. This is the anatomy of ultimate accountability, the structure of the last word, the gravity of the entire system held by a single consciousness, the weight. Power doesn't network. Power convenes. The elite exist in parallel. The most powerful in the room don't circulate. They receive. The world comes to them. The room is designed around their stillness, a vacuum that attracts everything else. The center is always the loneliest spot on the map, by design, by demand. The elite are citizens of altitude, not countries, fluency and purpose. They understand time zones as opportunity windows. Every flight is an office. Every city a chess piece. Home is wherever the work needs to be. Citizen of the sky. Crossing borders in silence. The sovereignty of the individual. Global reach. Alone. Power is a conditional thing. It exists in certain rooms and evaporates in others. Every police station, every hospital, every courtroom. Equalizers. Reminders of skin. These rooms remind the elite they are human first, subject to the same laws of gravity. The mask of the elite is thin in the face of the state, vulnerability revealed. The elite audit themselves, in private, without mercy, without theater. The mistake is examined until it is understood, then it is closed, not forgiven. Understanding is the only absolution allowed at this altitude, facts over feelings. The architecture of the future is built on the ruins of the past, corrected, stronger. The vision doesn't need an audience, it needs an owner. The privacy of creation. This is where empires begin, again, in the quiet before the noise, in the dark. Real talk requires no audience, no theater, no mask, just the frequency. The lone architect of the invisible next, the weight of potential, final and absolute. The most important conversations happen after midnight. Gatekeepers asleep. The bridge between two minds in the dark. The only currency that matters at 4 a.m., connected only by the data that defines them, still alone. The most isolated find humanity in foreign places, where money is irrelevant, where only presence counts. The mask falls away when it has no use, human to human. These trips don't make the news, they make the man, the excavation of the soul. The summit is forgotten, the soil is remembered, briefly, perfectly, just a man. Every empire eventually arrives at a bedside, reduced to presence. Time is currency. The final exchange, no words needed, the weight of a life passed in silence. Witnessed only by the geometry of the room, the loneliness is complete and sacred. In this room, the elite and the ordinary are the same. Finality is the great leveler. Loss does not respect calendars. It arrives and sits beside you in the silence. The isolation you chose becomes the isolation you feel. The walls turn inward. The architecture of loss. Room after room of what is no longer there. Silence. The price of the summit, paid in the dark, paid in full, alone, final, still. Part 3 ends in a garden, where the most powerful man is on his knees, in remembrance. A return to the basic. Before the suits, before the buildings, before the empire, human. Remembrance of the soil, remembrance of the skin, the weight is lifted briefly. The cost is known, the human remains, altitude is temporary, the earth is permanent. Every great arc has its morning of clarity. Not resolution, she meant clarity. The fog burned off by enough accumulated discipline, and the path forward visible at last. The wise builder doesn't rebuild bigger immediately, they rebuild better, always better, with the scar tissue of everything learned, and less tolerance for what isn't essential. There comes a moment when the isolation becomes a choice you can revisit, when the walls don't need to be this high anymore, when the work allows briefly the human, this is not weakness, this is evolution. Eventually, the isolated builder finds someone worth the investment of entry. Not many, one, sometimes two, people who remind them why they started, and who they trust enough to show the full picture. The next chapter always demands everything, again. It always demands everything, again, building ambition. But this time, the man knows the cost, and chooses it, explicitly, with open eyes. When the vision becomes concrete and glass, something in the builder shifts. Not satisfaction, permission, recognition, permission to look back at the road, and find that every step of it made sense. Looking back, some connections survive the silence, not all of them, but the ones that do emerge transformed. Tougher, lighter, more honest than before the gap. More honest than before the gap, across the miles. The table gets smaller and better, intentionally smaller. 4 people who earned the truth of you, people who stayed, better than 40 who had access to the performance. Known, trusted. This is the gift of the long isolation. You know who belongs. They never stop being students, the library never closes. At every level of success, there is a teacher ahead of you. The elite find them and sit at their feet, even alone at midnight, at the feet of greatness. At a certain point, the armor becomes optional, by design. The truth of the journey becomes the gift, absorbed. Not despite the loneliness, because of it, truly because of it. The man who survived his isolation has something to offer, something real. Some victories happen in parks on ordinary afternoons, not on stages, not in boardrooms, just here. The man who learned to be alone learns late to be present. And in that presence, something the empire never gave him. Eventually, the isolated builder has a duty to transmit. Not to be liked, not to be celebrated, but to guide. To give the next generation the map, passing the torch. And who they trust enough to show the full picture, transmitted. Every once in a while, they return to before, recognition. Not with regret, with cartography, recognition. This is where I started, this is what I carried forward, cafe. This is what I left, and why, and what it cost, return. The most important things they say are said to no one present. Recorded for those who come after, for the future. Alone in a room, speaking to the future, deliberate. The ultimate loneliness, a message with no immediate recipient. The ultimate act of the elite builder, making themselves unnecessary. Building something that outlives their involvement, satisfied. The machine runs, they watch from the periphery, in motion. And the periphery this time is where they chose to be. At some point, the truly elite downscaled deliberately, not from failure, from wisdom, not from weakness. The mansion was yesterday's required volume, moving forward. Today requires a room that fits the work and not the image. The cost of isolation repaid in transmission. Every scar becomes a map for the next one. Focused. Every failure a case study offered freely. Clarity. This is the second life of the lonely builder. Guided and returned. The summit is not the destination. It never was. Majesty. The summit is just the place where you can finally see all the roads and choose deliberately which one to descend on. The summit was just a place to see, a final vision. The impact is always larger than the builder can see. The man who cut everyone off to build something, looking out, built something for everyone, a record of years. The paradox is complete, built for everyone, touched. The 5 people left when the filtering is done, arriving. These are the ones who saw the process and stayed, who asked nothing when it was hardest, listening, who are at last enough, the exclusive table. Every empire traces back to a small room, beginning, where someone sat and decided to become more, walking. In that room, no one cut them off, silently. They were already alone. It was there they learned to use it. Some bridges survive the years of silence, not many, but some. And the ones that do carry a weight words cannot express, kind eyes. Recognition is nice, this is something else, recognition. This is something else, beyond words. Eventually, they learned to sit with the silence they built. Not in defiance of the world, in gratitude for the access it granted. The silence was always the gift, a quiet morning. It took a life to understand that, a whole life. The child who inherited the empire now builds beside it. And the builder sees in them the proof that isolation compounds. Not just wealth, character, walking together. The longest investment, the one that lasts forever. They understand at the end what the stadium represented. Not the crowd, the possibility, a private scale. The room you build can hold tens of thousands, standing. But you built it alone, one refusal at a time, solitude. What would you say if you could say everything? Final words. What would the lonely builder tell the lonely beginner, starting out? That it is worth it. Every door closed for the right reason was worth it. And every person you protected from the process, you protected from the reward. The builder becomes the building, permanent. The man becomes the institution, infrastructure. The isolation becomes the infrastructure, solid. And what was built remains for history. Every empire's greatest moment is not its peak, passing. It is the hand that passes the key to the next builder, legacy, saying, here is what I built and here is how much it cost. Now, what will you build? The cycle begins. In every lit window tonight, someone is choosing, decision. Whether to build the relationship or the empire, chosen. Whether to be understood or to build something worth understanding. The cycle starts again, a new beginning, alone. Somewhere tonight, the next great builder is looking at an empty field and seeing a city, a vision, clear, and deciding privately, irreversibly, like to build it, alone, as it has always been done. Solitude. The loneliness was not the destination. It was the corridor. It was the corridor. On the other side, home. On the other side, a room of chosen people and a built world. Belonging. The loneliness did its work. It is done. Finally home. The journal knows what the empire doesn't. The recognition, the price paid per page, the document of the journey. The quiet understanding of what it means to stay at the desk, accounting. The story in his hands, solitary and whole. The city is made of private silences, a gold dawn. Of rooms where people chose the work over the gathering, ambitions. Of prices paid in relationship and normalcy, the private drive. Of builders who gave their whole selves, a living network. This is the answer to the loneliness, not the ending of it. The result of it, the building stands, lives within. The builder was willing to be alone, recognition and awe. What stands will stand longer than the aloneness lasted, permanent. You'll never know which window holds the next great builder, night. But someone tonight is choosing the loneliness, the silence. Choosing the silence, choosing the distance, solitude. Some things can only be built alone, the legacy remains.